You can easily slide most screwdrivers through a wrench and then use it to create more torque. This especially helps if you're dealing with complicated angles and heights. You can unfold those takeout containers into flat plates, which will make it much easier for you to eat from them. And what's even cooler, you can fold them back up when you're done, so you can take the leftovers home. Non-stick pans are great, but metal utensils aren't a good idea when you use such pans. It might not be visible at first, but the metal spoils and scratches that non-stick coating on your pots and pans. This way, your cookware won't last long. Even worse, the non-stick coating contains harmful substances that may get mixed with your food. Most people subconsciously tend to buy a medium-sized soda. But it just encourages fast food retailers to make all sodas bigger and charge more for them. Many people buy medium-sized beverages even when they're not so thirsty, just because it looks like a better deal than a small one. Also, the medium size is in the strategic position right next to the large one. So even when it's expensive, it looks like a fair deal. For example, when you see two bottles of soda, one for $1 and the other for $3, many would choose the small one to save $2. But when you add a third size, which is even more expensive, it looks like you're getting more for your $3. Even though a medium-sized bottle is way smaller than a large one, but costs just around 50 cents less. The delicious Toblerone chocolate has an interesting design. Since the chocolate is produced in Switzerland, many people think its unusual triangular shape is supposed to remind them of the Swiss Alps. But in reality, the purpose is practical. Chocolate pieces are triangular so that you can press one with your thumb and easily snap it off. That's supposed to be the perfect size serving. But who can stop after just one? Now, how about we talk about detergent? Okay, its purpose is quite obvious. I bet you use it in the wrong way. It seems that the more detergent you add, the cleaner your clothes will come out, right? Not really. If you use more detergent than recommended, you can actually trap stains. Because too much detergent produces tons of suds. They kinda cushion the dirt and it doesn't wash away. Peanut butter doesn't have any hidden purposes, but there's a secret tip about how you should store it. When you have all-natural peanut butter, you can see that oils and solids get separated if you leave the product in the cupboard for a while. Next time you buy a jar of peanut butter, store it upside down. This way, the oil will get distributed more evenly. Flaps at the top of a juice box are there to make it easier for you to hold it. This way, you won't squeeze the box too tightly and spill the liquid. When was the last time you checked your tires? They have special tread markings that can help you understand when it's time to change them. Just place a penny into your tire's tread groove so that the head is upside down and facing you. If you see all of the head, it's time to think about getting new tires. A potato peeler is not just what its name says. It's a pretty versatile little thing. It can help you slice cheese, make potato chips, or get paper-thin carrot pieces for your salad. You can even slice an onion much faster than you usually would. Having a dishwasher doesn't mean that you can just randomly place your dirty dishes there and expect that everything will end up equally clean. The device has its own secrets. Place the dirtiest items in the middle of the bottom rack so that they face the spray arm. Those are usually things like pots, pans, and very dirty plates. Don't put big items over the detergent dispenser because they might block the soap and it doesn't get distributed the right way. Using a staple remover is a great way to pull your keys off the key ring. There's no need to ruin your nails, and if you want to add a new key to the ring, just take a staple remover and wedge its teeth between the coils. You'll create more space once you press it down. Most people use too much toothpaste when brushing their teeth, while a pea-sized amount is more than enough. It just looks better on ads when people use larger amounts. Don't fall for this trick. What's the biggest problem with using a slow cooker? You need to be patient. The main principle of work of this device is trapping heat and then using it to gradually cook food. So don't lift the lid of the device to check if the food is ready every couple of minutes, like you do with a regular pot. When you lift the lid, the heat escapes and you prolong the cooking time. Rivets are those little metal things on your jeans. Many people believe they're solely for aesthetics. But the manufacturers used to place rivets in the areas where a piece of clothing was more likely to tear and where there was a lot of strain. Rivets help to hold the fabric together. Have you ever noticed that the edges of some coins are smooth, while others have ridges? These ridges actually come from the past. Some sneaky folks would shave off the edges of their coins and use the metal they got to make new coins. But it was impossible to do the same with a coin with ridged edges. Most of the books have at least one or two completely blank pages in the back, front, or even both. That's because of signatures. It's a term that means groups of pages that printers fold and cut when assembling a book. A signature can contain 4 pages, or 16, 32, or 64. The main thing is that you can divide the number by 4. Such a signature can perfectly fit if a written work has 200 pages. But if there are, let's say, 203 pages, there will be some page leftovers from one of those signatures. Sometimes, publishers choose to fill this extra space with illustrations, feature checklists, other books an author has written, or even short extracts from other books. And in textbooks, instruction manuals, or similar publications, you can sometimes find the inscription, "This page is intentionally left blank." These notes are necessary so that you don't get worried that you're missing some important information. Why are fire trucks red? Back in the 1900s, there were mostly black-colored cars on the roads. That's why fire trucks were painted striking red, so that they could stand out in the sea of dark vehicles and get free space to pass through traffic faster. There's also a psychological component. For example, the color green kinda says, "Go ahead," and that's what it means when you look at the traffic lights. School buses are yellow because this color is the most visible one on the road, and the red hue symbolizes danger. Plus, it's the color with the longest wavelength visible to the human eye. This means we can easily spot it from a distance. That's why stop signs are also red. Have you ever noticed there's some numbers on your cosmetic products? You can usually find such codes along the edges of tubes or on the bottom of bottles and boxes. Don't ignore these numbers. They tell you how long your product will last. By following these instructions, you won't cause any damage to your skin. You sometimes see the green tint on the covers and tops of glass tables because of the iron content manufacturers use while producing the glass. You can see the greenish tint, especially if you take a look at the glass from the edges. If you don't like this color, go for low iron glass.
So, Alexander the Great, one of the most famous figures in ancient history, was apparently a big fan of one summer treat beloved by many to this day. Marco Polo, the Italian explorer and writer, is said to have brought back from Asia a recipe resembling sorbet, a frozen dessert made by mixing sugar-sweetened water with different types of flavoring. This dessert, which was later named cream ice, was a frequent treat at the court of Charles I of England in the 17th century. In France, it was Catherine de' Medici who introduced the beloved frozen dessert soon after she married Henry II. The frozen treat became available for the general public somewhere in the 1660s, when a Sicilian man blended milk, cream, butter, and eggs at Café Procope, the first known café in Paris. Thomas Jefferson himself had a preferred recipe for ice cream, which took a staggering 18 steps to complete. Ice cream has become so important in popular culture that it even has its own laws and regulations to accompany it, to make sure ice cream is always produced with its certain levels of quality. Not every frozen dessert you see out there is, in fact, ice cream. To be commercialized under this name, the Icy Delight needs to contain a minimum of 10% dairy milk fat and mustn't weigh less than 4.5 pounds per gallon. Genuine ice cream doesn't actually need to be too fluffy. In technical terms, that means it must have no more than 100% overrun. So, to get to that specific texture we've all come to know and love, the ice cream base needs to be sufficiently whipped, but only to a certain percentage. Specifically, for every gallon of ice cream base, the end products must not exceed 2 gallons after whipping. Your favorite summer dessert can yet again be broken down into many other subcategories, like reduced fat ice cream, low-fat ice cream, or non-fat ice cream, based on, what do you think, fat percentage. To have a solid idea of what you're ordering each time, it's best to look at the nutritional information of each product. One interesting type of frozen dessert is gelato. Although it literally translates to ice cream in Italian, there are differences between the two again, based on regulations on milk fat content. Gelato normally has less milk fat than ice cream officially should have, but since it has a low overrun, about 20 to 30%, the end result is still dense and rich in texture. The Italians also mention that gelato shouldn't have less than 3.5% of fat. If this doesn't seem complicated enough, the French also bring their own twist to the dessert. French ice cream, also known as frozen custard, apart from the standard ingredients, also needs to have eggs added to the mixture, with no less than 1.4% egg yolk. You've probably mislabeled many other food items, like say raspberries, as they're actually a member of the rose family, along with cherries, apricots, plums, pears, apples, peaches, or blackberries. They are added to this category based on their flowers. They bloom in 5 equal petals arranged around a central core. Bananas are considered berries, while strawberries aren't since they belong to the same rose family. We also share about 50% of our DNA with bananas, which explains why both bananas and certain attractive people can both have appeal. Another common misconception: white chocolate isn't actually chocolate, since it doesn't contain any chocolate solids. It's made only from a mixture of sugar, milk products, vanilla, lecithin, and cocoa butter. Parents all over the world don't try to convince their kids to eat broccoli for no reason. On a calorie-by-calorie basis, it turns out that broccoli has nearly as much protein in it as a steak. Now, I'm not convinced parents actually know that, but given the low fat content, broccoli has many other health benefits as opposed to meat. We now see it as the mandatory companion for fries, but at some point in time, ketchup was actually considered to have healing properties. In the 1880s, a doctor based in Ohio indicated that tomatoes could help treat digestive issues, publishing a ketchup-like formula that was later transformed into a pill. Hey, you want to have a pill with those fries? Speaking of French fries, it turns out one of the most popular side dishes in the world isn't actually French. Potatoes served this way actually originated in Belgium, but they're called that because of how they're cut, and maybe also because the name Brussels sprouts was already taken. I'm almost certain there's a jar of peanut butter somewhere in your cupboard, but I'll bet you didn't know how valuable it actually was, and I'm not talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Studies have shown that Americans go through enough peanut butter to coat the floor of the Grand Canyon each year. Just to be a bit more precise here, that's about 500 million pounds. Hey, if somebody did that on YouTube, I'd watch. The pink coloring of salmon isn't always like that by default. Wild salmon is pink due to a large amount of shrimp they consume natively. Farm-raised salmon, however, is generally white, so producers need to add plant-based pigments to get that light pink hue. Carrots weren't originally orange either. The red-yellow tint we are now familiar with comes from a genetic mutation of the well-known vegetable that occurred somewhere in the 16th century. Carrots were initially white or purple. Just like you add ketchup to the side of fries, you're most likely having a dab of wasabi with every plate of sushi. Well, it's most certainly dyed horseradish. The Japanese alternative to horseradish is quite expensive. That's why 99% of restaurants in the US actually use regular horseradish instead. You may see them packed together in the supermarket, but red, green, and yellow peppers aren't actually the same vegetable. You'd need different types of seeds to be able to grow them individually, as they're each their own type of plant species. Did you know 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a Nutella jar? The creamy spread is so popular that scientists are looking into ways to grow hazelnuts in labs to counteract the global shortage. That's something to think about when you ask for an extra topping. Sure, there's an expiration date on each bottle of water, but the water itself doesn't actually expire. The date mentioned there is, in fact, for the bottle itself, since the plastic can eventually leak harmful substances into the water. Ever wondered why airplane food sometimes tastes bland? The chef may not always be to blame. The altitude you're flying at has some effects on your body chemistry, making you taste things differently. You've added it to a salad at least once, but you may be surprised to know that cilantro and coriander are not in fact the same thing. Coriander is what the dried seeds are called, while the leaves and the stems go by cilantro. So now you know. For all the fruit lovers out there, scientists came up with a fruit salad tree. Yep, that's right, a tree that can grow different types of fruit at the same time. They were developed in Australia and can support up to 6 different types of fruit. There's a stone fruit variation that features peaches, plums, nectarines, apricots, and peachcots, and a citrus variation for those who prefer lemons, limes, mandarins, oranges, or even tangelos, pomelos, and grapefruits. You most likely avoid it because it can give you bad breath, but garlic is considered one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there. A single clove of garlic can contain 2% of your vitamin B6 for the whole day. Studies have shown that the chemical that gives garlic its distinctive flavor, called allicin, is good for your health. The only type of food that never spoils when stored properly is honey, or at least the only one we've discovered so far. That's because it contains a high amount of sugar and has a low moisture content. An enzyme created by bees also helps do the trick, as it can suppress any bacterial growth. Of course, if you store your honey the wrong way and expose it to additional moisture, it can go bad. But honey that is sealed and stored correctly technically has no expiration date. Now, if you're just starting out with your cooking skills, you'll be pleased to know mushrooms can't be overcooked. That's because they contain a polymer called chitin. This chemical allows them to remain tender even if you cook them from a few minutes to up to an hour. Hey, just add some butter and garlic. Nobody will ever know.
We eat it round the clock. But have you ever asked yourself who invented this dish? I'm talking about sandwiches, of course. One theory claims it was a man named John Montagu, also known as the 4th Earl of Sandwich, who lived sometime in the 1700s. The man didn't like interrupting whatever he was doing so much that he came up with the now famous invention. This way, he didn't need to take a break to have a real meal. One other brilliant culinary invention that you can't probably imagine your lives without is pizza. While most people know where the original one came from, the much debated Hawaiian pizza actually comes from Ontario, Canada. A Greek immigrant by the name of Sam Panopoulos came up with this recipe in 1962. You didn't happen to think the famous Roman emperor used to eat this salad every now and then, hence the name Caesar salad? That's certainly not the case. Once, during the July 4th celebration, an Italian chef named Cesar Cardini ran out of food. Desperate to feed his guests, he ended up putting together whatever ingredients he had and making a salad. Was it a success? Absolutely. Chopsticks are way older than the fork you likely use every day. About 4,500 years older to be precise. It's believed that chopsticks should not be shared between people, even if they were previously washed. Otherwise, you'll be at risk of picking up aspects of the personalities of those who used the chopsticks before. The most versatile fashion item of them all, a pair of jeans, usually has a tiny pocket right in the front. It was designed to keep a pocket watch. This kind of watch may not be in style anymore, but the pocket remains. While we're on this topic of fashion, the pom-pom on the top of a stocking cap actually has a purpose. Once worn by sailors so they wouldn't hit their heads on low ceilings of whatever ships they were in, the pom-pom is said to date back to the Vikings. Even though it's hard to picture Ragnar the Great with a pom-pom on his head. The first thing most people do after buying a piece of clothing is cut off the tag situated on the inside of the garment. This tag often makes you feel uncomfortable, sometimes even itchy. And it only has a bunch of symbols written on it, right? Well, those symbols actually provide a lot of useful information that can help you to preserve the garment for as long as possible. For example, you can find washing or ironing instructions there. Make sure to have a look at the tag before you throw your piece of clothing in the washing machine. There's a reason why pens are designed with holes in their caps. Those have a very important purpose. In case a cap gets accidentally swallowed, the hole in its top will stop the cap from blocking the person's airways completely. This will prevent choking. Whether you're allergic to them or not, I bet you don't know peanuts aren't actually nuts. According to their scientific classification, they're actually legumes. Confusingly enough, we recognize almonds, walnuts, pistachios, and cashews as nuts too, but technically, they're seeds. USB cables have now become familiar items in every home. Interestingly, the little USB logo has a story of its own. Though it was up for much debate online, it's most commonly believed to resemble the trident of Neptune, aiming to symbolize universality and versatility. We need salt for seasoning our dinner, for health reasons, and most importantly, for chips and popcorn. But in ancient Rome, salt was so important that it was used as currency. It has been said that for their services, some Roman citizens were paid in salt. Is that how we got the word salary? We also came up with the name buttermilk, but this liquid does not actually contain butter, at least most of the time. If you follow the traditional recipe, buttermilk is what's left behind after you churn butter. Here's an interesting fact about cats you might have never heard about. Cats have only 4 toes on their back paws and 5 toes on their front paws. It's believed this helps them run faster and improve their agility. Formidable. Used for packaging these days, bubble wrap was initially supposed to be wallpaper. 2 engineers who came up with the idea wanted to create a different texture for walls, but the product didn't turn out as popular as they expected. But when the company IBM needed to deliver some fragile computer components, bubble wrap was repurposed, and it became the kind of packaging we've all come to know and love. Popping the bubbles for stress relief is just a nice added bonus. A computer gadget used for all the endless scrolling is called a mouse. And that sounds right, since it's fast, small, and the cord that connects to the computer looks like a tail. But initially, it was called a turtle. That's because of the device's hard exterior that resembles a shell and all those moving parts underneath. While most food items are sold in plastic bags, bread and other fresh pastries in most cases come in brown paper bags. The answer is twofold. Since baked goods are supposed to be consumed in a couple of days, tops, keeping a loaf of bread in a plastic bag can alter its taste and texture. Secondly, paper packaging allows air to flow evenly. This helps to keep the bread fresher in the short term. The reason why the pound cake got its name is because the original recipe asked for a pound of each basic ingredient: butter, flour, sugar, and eggs. This ratio ensured the unique consistency of the cake. It sounds like a lot of food. Well, no wonder. The cake was meant to be eaten over a long period of time. On the topic of packaging, some fruits come in different types of colored mesh. Oranges are sold in a red mesh, while lemons come in green. Well, that's not random. The hue of the mesh is selected to better bring out the color of the fruit, which makes you more likely to buy it. Talk about smart marketing. There's an interesting story behind the regular pencil as well. When you picture a pencil, you most likely imagine it yellow. Well, this color was chosen not by accident. Pencils contain graphite. When they started to be mass-produced in the 20th century, the best type of graphite was in China. And since yellow is the color of Chinese royalty, most pencils were painted this way to show their origin. Have you ever wondered why the candle wick needs to be right in the middle of the candle jar? It's done so to prevent the candle from burning unevenly. If the wick is off-center, you won't get all the use hours out of your candle. It may even stop burning altogether because all that wax dripping over itself. One of the best or worst, depending on how much of a fan you are, things about going to the movies is watching trailers. But have you ever wondered why we call them this way? That's because they were originally displayed after the movie, and these little snippets were trailing feature films. Once projectionists realized that not a lot of people remained in their seats to watch trailers, they started showing them at the beginning of movies, but the name stuck. Erasers often come in different colors. The blue, more rigid part of the eraser is designed for coarser, thicker types of paper, and the pink part is better suited for use on classic notebook paper. We use paper towels for almost everything in the kitchen these days, from wiping surfaces to cleaning fruits and vegetables. But chefs and other people working in the industry swear by using bar mop towels. For starters, they can be reused, which is better for the environment. Plus, you can do almost everything you need with a cotton bar towel. From pulling stuff from the oven, to grabbing hot handles, from chopping fruits, to wiping up all sorts of spills.